God's plan and his way was built around a table.
We naturally want to kind of put on some facade of who we really are, but when you sit around a table, there really is no ability to do that.
The genuineness of being away from the rest of them, the women, everybody else, but just the guys, we can press into some things we can't in other settings, and sometimes the experience creates an opportunity.
I grew up, with a dad young from till 9, roping, rodeoing, fishing, hunting, all the things, and then my dad dies tragically at 9 years old. And so I go into an identity crisis of, I don't know what it means to be a man other than, a short stint of what I saw. But for me, when I think about my journey into manhood, it was with Jesus at the table.
My daughter's going through divorce, and my only daughter, and after 26 years of marriage and an unfaithful husband and just ugly process, it's been one of the most difficult seasons of my life. I mean, this is your baby girl, and this guy's violated her, and you bridge between wanting to kill him and trying to figure out, what would Jesus do? Would he really love him?
Really, masculinity at its core is strength on behalf of others. If men are called to be strong on behalf of their families, their wives, their communities, well, when that strength is then used for themselves, then what happens is it becomes about how much money I can make, how strong I can be at the gym, how many women I can sleep with. That's why we have such a crisis.
Table men exist to set the table, to gather men, movements, leaders, anybody and everybody to just say, we can do this together. Jesus did it together with a bunch of men. We can do it together with a bunch of men. He built 12 men's lives that has changed the world till we know it today. What if an army full of God, wholehearted, driven men laid hold of this country? What could really happen? Hey guys, welcome to The Table. My name is Jake Freels, podcast host of The Table Men. Guys, you're going to be on board with us here at the Alaskan Legend out in the wild Alaska, going on a boat with a bunch of friends, and we're going to sit around the table and talk about real, raw, authentic stories. You're going to hear stories from family adventures to overcoming major challenges to difficulties in life to also successes and how guys are shaping other men around the table. Listen, Jesus did it with 12 guys. He shaped their lives to now see what we're doing all the way to today in 2025. We're still using tables. We're still eating meals, and we're still seeing transformation. I'm going to tell you this. If you watch this whole entire thing with us, you will leave inspired and hopeful about what these guys are going to share. And you will take nuggets away that will change your life forever. I truly believe that. So we welcome you here to the table. We can't wait to see you on the boat. And thank you for joining us for Table Men Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to Table Men Podcast. We are super excited to talk to you about what it means to be a brother, a son, a father, a man. We're going to be covering all these topics and having a real conversation about what these mean and how to apply them in our life. But more importantly, the testimony of our own lives and how we've seen this displayed in what we're doing. So I have Duane Smith here. So thankful for you to be on the podcast today. And glad to have you here. Jordan, man, so thankful, man. Thank you that you're here joining us on this conversation. And guys, we're just going to jump in to this dialogue of manhood. And today we are, as you can see, in Alaska. We are on top of our good friend's boat, Charles, and he has the Alaskan Legend that he let us use for this podcast for this reason. And guys, you'll see pictures and videos of what this is, and we're in the middle of God's creation. You got to miss God to be out here, is what I keep saying on this trip the whole entire time. The question for today, and what I want to frame this around, is God's plan and his way was built around a table. He built 12 men's lives that has changed the world till we know it today. And he used a table very specifically to do that. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the way of Jesus and why the table is so important, and how does the table begin to shape us as men, fathers, sons, brothers. How does that shape us? And what have you guys seen in your lives of the men in your life and in the tables you've sat at? So, Jordan, I want to start off with you. What is that for you? How have you seen God shape you at a table specifically?
Yeah, so many things I think of. Organic moments, with fathers specifically, just doing life, with men who had no agenda other than loving me and helping me figure out who I was called to be in Christ. Yeah, and I think of good food. I think of the beauty of, just being with people around a table, and how it takes away all of the walls that you put up.
Yeah.
How I think a lot of us as men too, we naturally want to kind of put on some facade of who we really are. But when you sit around a table, there really is no ability to do that, because what you see is what you get. Yeah. And there's an invitation, I think, being set to men all over the world today to come to a table and to just be who you really are, your real self.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, Duane, speak into that a little bit. What is that? How has it seen you shape, who you are as a man, all these years? What is that? What do you feel like it has done in your lifetime and around at a table?
Sure. I've probably a few more seasons than you guys, but for a long time in my life, I was very involved, but isolated maybe, and just really connecting. Probably 8 years ago or so, we did our first experience at a real men's table, which, thinks, well, that's not that long ago, but just the genuineness of being away from the rest of them, the women, everybody else, but just the guys, being real and interfacing, I thought was not only encouraging, but just brought out we can press into some things we can't in other settings. And sometimes the experience, like this experience, the environment creates an opportunity. It's just like, hey, I love being here. God's here. It's really easy to connect. Connecting with one another just is accentuated, opened up, and so value that for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the most powerful things that I saw at the table in the specific, gathering we did up in Montana at one point, was this moment, I think, really began to redefine the table experience for a lot of the men. Tell the story about how you and your son connected around manhood and calling him into manhood, and when that experience happened around the table, man, what happened? Just tell us that story in and of itself.
Well, it's somewhat of a unique story. I'll refer that actually back to a hunting trip when Skyla was probably 15, maybe 14. Anyway, we were elk hunting, and we're rifle hunting, so we were kind of on our own a little bit, and in a pretty wilderness area, and he got lost in the process. Couldn't find him. It kept, we were disconnected for pretty much all the day, and so evening came, and I'm a little concerned, but we talked before about hey, if you get lost, go downhill, hit a river, find a road, get your way back to camp. And so I knew he had that in his brain, and that was possible. From any direction we were at, you could head downhill, and you'd eventually, it might take 10 miles, but you're going to eventually get somewhere. Yeah. And so I'm there at the camp and waiting for him, and it's getting on to, it gets dark probably 5 o'clock at that time, and it's like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and thinking, Mom's going to kill me. I even tell her.
They come out with baby boy.
I know. If I even tell her the story, she's going to kill me. So, okay. But anyway, I just kept trusting the Lord and trusting, putting some trust in my son that, okay, I've got confidence in him, unless we got some physical issue, he's going to get home. So anyway, pretty soon a truck came in, and he was on the truck.
Wow.
And so I see him, and so instead of just jumping on him and saying, hey, didn't know you'd ever come home to me, I just shook his hand and just said, welcome back, son.
Yeah.
And just to exhibit some confidence in him that, hey, I knew you were in a tough spot. I knew you could handle it, had confidence in you. And so welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
And I believe those are, there's moments in life that you create manhood, create trust, create at least a little distance from dad and dependency that, okay, I did this. My dad expected me to do it.
Yeah.
And here I am, and he's not like shocked. He's just like, yeah, welcome home, son. You know, and I think that built a confidence in him that, yeah, I'm a man. Yeah, I can step up. And probably was a little afraid, but I can step up. And so that example, I think, brought a witness to both of us. So it was years later of what you were talking about. We're at the table in Montana, and I'm sharing this experience, and then somebody asked about my own experience, which was.
Hey guys, I want to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, Triple Crown Ford, where you can find an incredible vehicle, not only built for it tough, but ready for you. It is going to be a place where you can find whatever vehicle you need. Their service is top notch. Just go down there, ask for one of their sales associates to lead you along to find your vehicle that you need. You can go to triplecrownford.com and find out the next vehicle for you. We personally drive the brand new 25 Expedition. That is incredible. It takes us on adventures everywhere we go, and we're so thankful for their partnership in this journey. We are going to jump right back into this podcast on the boat in Alaska. So here we go. We will see you on the next half of this show.
Maybe a little bit similar. I mean, I was out elk hunting with my dad when I was 15, and I shot a big 6-point, and it was probably 5 miles in, 2 foot of snow. I mean, it was a tough deal. Good experience for a 16-year-old or 15-year-old boy, but anyway.
I hope all you 15-year-olds are out there listening to this. You can go kill an elk at 15, you know? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
A Royal 6-point. It was a dandy. But anyway, I only wanted to pack out the head and horns, but, you know, Dad wanted to just pack out all the meat. So we're packing out. So about our 4th trip in, I didn't think I'm going to make it out of there. And so we climb up, and there's a big canyon that we came up out of to get to the truck. So I get up to the truck, and I had no legs. I got nothing. I got nothing in me, and I sit down. And my dad never drank alcohol that I knew of, but we get in, and he reaches under the seat and pulls out this bottle of whiskey. Says, "Here you go, son." And I grabbed that. No association with whiskey, though.
That's funny.
But like, he slapped me on the back, and he takes a swig, and we take a few more swigs, and then we go down for our 5th trip, you know. And it was just like, oh, I'm a man.
You man.
Yeah, it was just
this is it.
Oh, this is it. Yeah. And it just awakened me something, and that was real positive. And so at the table, I was sharing that experience.
Yeah.
And somebody asked, well, did you have that experience with Skylar? You know, and I said, no, probably not defined that way, and probably too religious to do that. And so Skylar was there, so he's stirring around. He comes over, and he brings two shots of whiskey over.
Yeah,
and so we're sitting at the table. We just take our whiskey. You're a man, son. We shake hands and hug, you know. And it was a moment. It was a moment.
Man, it's probably one of the most powerful moments, legitimately, of one of my table experiences, because, I mean, these are men all the way around the table in their 30s, 40s, 50s, you know, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house, because we're all just bawling, because it's like you're watching, you were doing something so intrinsic and natural, and you called him into manhood at 14, but for there to be this co-understanding of like, no, we're solidifying this, like we're calling this into be, not only that, but in the presence of our brothers at a table. And we all just felt a part of it. Like we all were like, where's my shot of whiskey, you know? I mean, you know, so, I mean, we literally poured shots of whiskeys around the whole thing, you know, and just individually, we all just began, if you feel like you've never stepped into manhood, this is your time. And I think, you know, that is something as the lost art in America. We don't do that well anymore, even in our own natural selves of trying to do this. And, you know, we're men's men. We hunt, we fish, we work on things, we have up businesses and all that. But still, there's a moment we can grab onto and solidify this idea of manhood. Jordan, tell me a little bit about that for you. What was your journey into manhood? What was your journey with your dad in that same kind of conversation?
Yeah, I think of, before I share my direct journey, I think of the one quote from John Tyson. He talks about how until there's that defining moment that a man can look back to and say, this is when I know that something shifted for me and I stepped over that threshold. We really live a life constantly looking at other men like insecure, going, have I done enough to become enough to be strong enough, right? Until our fathers actually call that out of us. And it's funny, I have a different back story. I love to golf, fish, and hunt, but my dad didn't do any of those things. My dad bakes, and he gardens, and he does lawns, and he's a pastor. He's amazing, one of the best pastors in the world. I love him so much. But
Nice.
The funny thing is, my upbringing wasn't really the hunting trips. It wasn't really the moments out, on the golf course with Dad. It was baseball a little bit, and then lots of amazing moments of affirmation. And I think of times in the garden, times doing different things where he would have me pull the tractor up or something, but really his affirmation of me, I think, is really what set for me. It was the words of affirmation that he gave over me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I am a huge words of affirmation guy, because of the way that he led the way, and just affirmed constantly in those key seasons of my life, between probably 13 and 16.
Wow.
Of moments of saying, you know what, you're going to take this, you're going to take responsibility for this, you're going to take responsibility for this. And it's because you're a man of God. It's because your heart is pure. It's because, and I had a great upbringing. I'm super thankful for it. But yeah, I think those affirmative words for me were really what I look back on, and really what shaped me. And
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think what's beautiful, that's actually beautiful, is because, hunting trips and fishing trips and things like that don't make us a man.
Yeah.
Gardening and doing the other things are just as much manly, and it's just as much of a cultivation. I mean, Jesus spoke in principles and parables of gardening and sowing and reaping and but what I think about this journey as you listen to both sides, I grew up, with a dad young from till 9, roping, rodeoing, fishing, hunting, all the things. Yeah. And then my dad dies tragically at 9 years old by getting hit head on by a kid committing suicide. And he crashes into our truck and kills my dad. And so I go into an identity crisis, of, I don't know what it means to be a man other than, a short stint of what I saw. But I think for me, when I think about my journey into manhood, it was with Jesus at the table in the Tenerife Islands of Spain. I took my first mission trip after 10 years of just living life like hell. I mean, sleeping, drinking, all the things. And I'm in Tenerife, Spain at a dinner table, and the presence of God comes, and he literally, I feel this physical arms grab me, hold me, and say, I love you, you're my son. And I just broke down, and I lose it, because I was like, he loves me, and I'm his son, and I was just like, my life's different. Like, I'm a man, it was just totally disassociated to the things that we think of man is as well. But for me, I needed that, because like I said, I did all the man's man things, and I considered myself a man, but I did not know myself as a man in the Lord. And that was a total change for me. That took me from being, that's the church, to I am. Yeah. I get to be a part of this game. I get to be a front runner of whatever he calls me to. And from that day forwards, for the last 20 years, that's why I call it Table Men, because he met me at the table, and he continues to meet me at the table over and over and over again to affirm my manhood, to affirm our manhood, and to have these conversations. As we kind of pivot and shift into another thought pattern of, there's something you were saying in there of, you knew that Skylar was ready to take on that journey and to find his way back home. What made you feel that way? What were some of the things that you felt like was the process of him becoming a man that you saw organically?
It's a tough question, Jake. I'm just thinking back of not only that experience, but just the season of life, because he was probably 14 years old at that time, and you're watching a boy becoming a man. In some ways, you're resisting it at times, because you remain in charge, and you want to still oversight well, but also you want to give him the freedom. So even on that hunting trip, we were in a place he'd never been for. I'd hunted there several times, but we've hunted in other places that were more familiar with him. But I thought, okay, I'm going to give you the freedom, and we're going to, we had about a mile target. We were going to go hunt through, and we got separated pretty early on, and said, okay, I'm going to give him that freedom. I could have signal shot or whatever, but let's stay with the program. So I think just the journey, and I suppose you always have questions that, was he ready for that?
Come on. Sitting alone, waiting for him to get home, just going, oh my gosh, did I just lose it? I think that's a common thought.
But I think that, that part of that is just trust in the Lord too. He was developed in his own way as a believer, and said, okay, it's not just the training, the influence of myself, but it's obviously the influence of the Lord, and trusting that, okay, he's not going to get shook. He's not going to panic out, start running, and hurt himself. He's going to maintain his composure, and I felt comfortable about that.
Yeah. I think that's so key is, when you have fathers, like you said, give away freedom, and give away experience, and there's risks with that. Like there's always risk with, I think as we're learning how to develop as men, if there's not risk involved and there's not chance involved of something happening, then what are we actually stepping into? I mean,
if you can't die in it, why do it? That's not an adventure.
Drown in the river, fall off a cliff, get eaten by a bear, run over by a truck. But we need that, I think, as men. I think we need the adventure. We need the challenge. We need the pressure. We thrive off of it as men. And I think, when you think about how metal is formed, it's formed under pressure. It's formed under fire. It's formed under this compressing and watching that take place and mold. What are some other things that you saw your dad do, and maybe in the ministry form, that shaped your manhood in the ministry form?
Yeah, and even as you were talking, I was thinking back to one situation that I remember when I was about 15. My dad actually got diagnosed with a stroke, and he was told he was going to go completely blind in his eyes. He has like weak eye muscles or something, but the stroking in his eyes stopped to a place where he has like the peripheral bottom half of his right eye and then the top half of his left eye. And in that season, it was kind of it was in that season where I was really stepping into getting older, and definitely that season of, stepping into manhood. And he surrounded a bunch of guys, had a bunch of guys in the church come around and surround me. That was a huge thing that I'm so thankful that he did, and like I use that word affirmation. It's just been a huge thing for me. I think so many men and fathers specifically, it's hard for them to affirm their sons. And even if you don't have all the experiences, just having that was so important. We had a group, I remember a few pastors, few leaders, and were they perfect men? No. But they knew how to carry themselves, knew how to carry their family. And in the moment of my dad, being told he was going to go blind, we're like praying for him. And I remember them really calling me forth as a leader in my family. And 'cause at that time, I wanted to play baseball, like for the rest of my life. And my dad was my pitching coach.
Okay.
And when everything changed, he couldn't pitch and couldn't do anything because his eyes went south. And so I had to really have an understanding for myself then of who Jesus was for me, and seeing my dad and my family in ministry, but then seeing everything, just kind of drop and think that my dad's going to be blind, can't play baseball. It's like, who is God for me was really a big thing. But yeah, specifically what happened in that season was him surrounding me with men in our church and having me go on experiences, sending me to a camp. I was talking to a friend a couple weeks ago who's got a son, and his son, he's on his phone all the time, is really like, into himself and needs some outlets. I'm like, man, is he mow lawns? Send him to a camp where he can serve. I remember a couple summers going and just, cleaning toilets for a camp, and
which is glorious, by the way. I did it for years.
Yeah. And the smallest thing, being put in positions to serve, being put in positions to see my leadership shine forth, and like who I'm called to be come out, and being trusted, by him to do that. And there were many others, but those are the things that really shine to me.
Yeah, that's, I think there's something Duane, I'd love for you to speak on this. He's saying most men have a hard time affirming. You speak of your dad. I've heard you in the past saying, your dad didn't have a lot of words of affirmation, and that wasn't necessarily a culture. You explain that, what was that like in living in a culture like that, and now trying to lead differently at times? How's your journey been in that?
I think my dad's generation was a great generation, from Depression through World War II and then their senior years. They were very, for the most part, not going to classify them all, but they're very isolated, very non-touching, never said I love you, never hugged, never, from a child I remember, no, shake my hand, back up, shake my hand, I don't want you hugging my leg, don't want you bumping me, It was a different environment and maybe justified, but I think there's probably better ways to do that, sure. To affirm sons, but I will say this, in later years, my dad, when he's like 85, and still a non-believer, just pretty defiant, I started talking to him and telling him, I love you, Dad. Mm-hmm. And, he just, yeah. Go on,
squirm around.
Yeah, squirm around, okay. And then gradually, he said, love you too.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. A little louder.
Yeah. So that kind of developed until we fully could say, "Hey, I love you, Dad. Give me my embrace," and he said, "I love you, son." And so we grew out of that, and I think part of that softening helped him to soften toward the Lord, because he received the Lord at 92 or 93.
Wow.
And became a believer. And, that was obviously a long-term prayer, but it was a long-term softening. But, that was part of that generation, and it just wasn't part of the validation I grew up with.
Yep.
Wanted to have Skylar to have a different experience in that, but I also valued independence and the strength that was portrayed by my dad. Yeah. So I portrayed that to Skylar, and probably overly so. I mean, he became probably pretty independent like myself, and there's good pieces of that, and there's some also pieces that are non-community. Sure. Like I love what your dad did, bringing him in with other men, and I probably would never thought to do that. I mean, just like, oh yeah, it's my responsibility. I'm raising my son. Get on my life. Yeah. But I probably could have learned some of those attributes as well.
I think this just goes to point out the whole picture of all this is that we all don't know what we're fully doing. I mean, we're all learning, and we do the best with what we have. I don't think there's a perfect path to manhood, nor do I think there's a perfect example of manhood. Mm-hmm. Other than Jesus himself. Obviously, we're sure we could say that, but I'm saying we're all where we're at, and we all have an ability to press in and learn and grow. And, I mean, when you're sitting here saying I could have done this different, I mean, we're all in that process. And I think that's what I love about the most of it is, you have a lot of guys that'll sit down and be like, well, this is how I did it, and this is how my son became, and then you go sit down with his son, and he's like, well, I don't know if I'm a man or not, and I don't know what I'm doing. And you're like, well, maybe those things didn't link up real well, you thought in your head you knew you were making a man, but the boy didn't know he was becoming a man. And I think that's the conversation at large in America. We don't know what a man is at large in America. We have lost that. What are some factors that you guys think we have lost manhood in America? Yeah. What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think, going back to what you said, we don't know what manhood is. I think really masculinity at its core is strength on behalf of others, right? And so
love that.
If men are called to be strong on behalf of their families, their wives, their communities, well, when that strength is then used for themselves, that's why we have such a crisis, and so you guys know that. But then what happens is it becomes about how much money I can make, how strong I can be at the gym, how many women I can sleep with. And sadly that becomes it comes out of that longing to be known by our Father, right? And when that's not satisfied at sometimes 50, 60 years old, we're living out of that wound. And so that strength that God put inside of us that was supposed to be used for our families and our communities and our businesses and very God-centered, it gets abused. And then culture thinks we're toxic, but all we need is the love of the Father and that affirmation, And so I think of those two questions. This is a little off from your question, but I think of those two questions that John Eldridge talks about so many times, that every boy comes into the world with one need and one longing, and the need is for the Father's love, and the longing is to hear that I have what it takes. And And I know that there was that season of my life, whether it was a little different or not, 15, 16, 17, my dad definitely answered those questions. Yeah. Did he do it out in the woods? No, I was out in the woods with men, praise God. Yeah. But I know those questions were answered. And why I love that is because if you look at scripture, Jesus, before he started any of his ministry, we all know, what were the two questions that the Father answered when he was baptized? He came down, through a dove and spoke, I love you, and basically you have what it takes. I'm pleased with you.
Right.
And it's wild because then you follow the story of Jesus, Matthew chapter 7. I think it's Transfiguration. Maybe that's not Matthew chapter 7, but somewhere around there. And Moses and these greats show up in the clouds, and the disciples are there. And when you read it, you don't realize, but I think God the Father then affirms Jesus again and says the same two things. And you're like, man, was Jesus insecure? Or you have to think about the humanity of Jesus and his manhood. It's like, well, for some reason, God the Father kept affirming his son.
Wow.
And I just think about that. I think about that with manhood at its core, because if we don't feel loved, valued, like we've really got what it takes, we spend our whole life, going to the next thing.
Hey guys, I want to give a shout out to Alaska Legend. Man, this has been an incredible journey. You can book this boat actually for your next journey, for your family, your friends, even a corporate adventure. You will see brown bears, fishing, wildlife, waterfalls, glaciers, just unreal mountain landscape. It is probably one of the top trips of my lifetime. You do not want to miss this. It's where luxury meets adventure. It's where service and class meets you right in the middle of a yacht in the ocean. Guys, it doesn't get any better than this, and Charles Davis at the helm will give you a first-class experience. So reach out to them at alaskayacht.com to book your next adventure and tell them Table Men sent you. Guys, we cannot wait for you to get to experience what we get to experience on this boat. And guys, we look forward to seeing you back on the boat.
That's great language for that. I agree with that totally. I think there's another aspect of that too. I think we often address that failure, but also I believe there's I'll just use my own experience with Skylar. I thought back at that season, we were heavily involved in church, and doors were open, we were there, we were associate pastors doing a lot of things, and life was just busy. And I think I get towards his 18, 19 years old, I'm realizing, wow, he just grew up. And my thought, I hardly did anything with him. We went hunting, we went fishing, we did things, camped, but seemed like a small percentage of the time. Yeah. And there was a place we used to hike into about 3 miles. We'd pack in there and pack in for the night and swim in a lake and then pack back out. And I think we did that maybe 3 times while he was growing up, maybe 4. Anyway, he was sharing the story at a table in Montana. I don't remember which year it was. He was sharing the story, and he was just saying, every year my dad and I would hike into this mountain, and we just had this great connection. And it was just, every year I look forward to that, just such a great connection. I'm thinking, wow.
We only did that a couple of times, or maybe once.
Maybe I wasn't such a failure after all. And I'm saying that just to recognize, hey, just seize the moments. This is not rocket science for Dad. Just seize the moment. You got some moments, you play them out, you do the best you can, and just trust the Lord that, hey, He's going to embrace these, and it's going to be valuable. And when your son's 14, 15, he's not going to come back and say, wow, that was the most amazing trip I ever had. You're going to ask him, what did you enjoy? Oh, it's good. Caught a few fish. But that's, but I'm sure on the other side of that, after he tells Matt, he goes back and tells his friends that, hey, we had an amazing backpack trip, and I did this, and I did this, and I jumped off the rocks, and we did all this stuff. I guess from hindsight, I'd look at that and think, okay, God did handle this pretty well, and I played some pieces and didn't feel like I was adequate a lot of times, but actually it worked out.
Wow. And I absolutely love that, because God made up all the gaps in the later part of my story, and as I think through my journey of becoming a man, I just started finding as many men that emulated what I wanted, and I'd just go get around them and go stay at their house, or whatever they were doing, I was doing, and I think that's a big missing piece that Today, a lot of kids they don't know, or a lot of men, they don't know to go get around them. How do I do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think the easiest way for us to connect the generations, invite them over to your house for dinner, serve them a T-bone steak. I mean, dadgum, you're going to turn down T-bone steak. You're not a man anyway. So, I mean, I don't know what we're doing, but I think we got to really just make it simple. And that's, again, why this principle of the table, I think, is so elementary, baseline, fundamental, what he did, because he got a bunch of ragtag dudes that would have never sat around number one, let's throw a tax collector at the table.
Yeah.
That done pissed everybody off.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, anybody and everybody's welcome here. And that just puts it all at an even level field right there immediately. You're welcome at my table. And I think back to that. Of my favorite moments around tables are like family time, Thanksgiving, Christmas. We used to all go to my grandma's, and you're all around the table, and then what happens? Grandpa starts cracking off old-time jokes or old-time stories, and then next thing you know, we're all telling stories about whatever, and you're like, dude, this is awesome. Like, I love this, And, I mean, we were doing that last night. I mean, how many stories did we tell around the table, from guys getting detained in Russia to, fishing tales and all kinds of crazy stuff, and then we also hit the deep, vulnerable places of our heart as well, going, man, I'm afraid of this, or I don't know what's going on, or this something that's pretty cool. As you can see, it's pretty foggy back behind us, and I think most men are in a fog.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, in my own life, I know I faced a deep fog, and this is the kind of question I have next for us is, when's a moment in your life you faced a deep fog, whether it's depression or whether it's a major moment that was scary, or you have fear or overwhelmed, or just you felt like you were in a fog. And I think for me, it was my transition from boy to man. I was in a deep fog, depressed at the core, suicidal, ready to end life, because by that time I'd already had a bunch of fame and accolades in sports and on the front page of the paper and all the stuff that you'd want in that, sleeping with more girls than I ever want to sleep with, drinking as much as I ever want to drink. I was that guy, I was that man's man, but yet I was swirling in a sea, literally, of fog. Yeah. And did not know my bearing of true north, did not know where the sun was. And I remember I was going to crash my truck and hit an 18-wheeler, and I heard a small voice. And that's where it started. It was just a small voice that said, you don't want to do this. And I was like, huh. I mean, it's that moment. It was just like that small voice of, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. And he met me in my pain. He met me in the deepest, darkest fog of my life. And he was there. Yeah. And not shortly after that, not 6 months, 7 months after that, seats me at the table and calls me a son.
Yeah.
So that was my journey into manhood, was coming out of a deep fog. And then I have faced so many other fogs, and specifically as a dad, 4 kids and doing businesses and leading movements and different stuff I've done in my life. Oh man, it can be just downright terrifying or exhausting or whatever that is. So what's something that you have faced that has just been kind of that you were in a deep fog?
Mm-hmm. Well, hard for me to escape the current. I was sharing with the guys this morning that, my daughter's going through divorce, and my only daughter, and after 26 years of marriage and an unfaithful husband, and just ugly process. So it's been one of the most difficult seasons of my life. I mean, this is your baby girl, and this guy's violated her, and you bridge between wanting to kill him and trying to figure out, what would Jesus do? Would he really love him? Yeah, I got to love him. If I kill him, am I still loving him? I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty foggy action,
Yeah, I get it.
But currently in that reality, but I think one thing that's actually my son shared this with me out of a book, but we may not know how to get. We may not know the way, but we know how to get there. And that's kind of where I'm at. You know, I don't know exactly how this is all going to play out, but I do know how to get there. I mean, I've got enough trust in God that in her relationship with the Lord that, yeah, you know, this is going to set out to be good. Yeah. I trust that. I'm not in a fog about that fact. I'm clear. It's just I'm not sure how to get there. Yes. You know, not sure how to even shake free of the emotions that just affect my day-to-day joy. You know, and I hate the fact that somebody has influence over my joy. You know, I think, you know, I tell people, you know, don't let people control you. What are you doing? You know, you're your own person. You know, don't let somebody dictate your emotions. I'm thinking, he's dictating my emotions right now.
That's a tough.
Cut that one off.
Yeah,
you know?
Man.
But yeah, so not sure I'm processing that, but I know exactly how to get there. Yeah.
But man, number one, thanks for sharing that, and I love that what he just shared. We're not waiting to share on the backside of a testimony. Like, you're sharing in the middle of a journey, and that's raw. And that's very. It takes a lot of courage. Number one, that takes a lot of vulnerability, and that takes a lot of just example of number one, your heart towards men to see them succeed, and that's a major deal. And so, just want to honor you in that for even just sharing that in live time like that. That's a big deal. Jordan.
Yeah. I think of a season, many different seasons come to mind, but the one that I think of most right now is when I spent most of my life training to do ministry full time, and you know, college and experiences. And one of the reasons why I love the table concept is I think growing up, I kind of had this idea that when I reached a certain stage, I would be fulfilled. And what the Lord did, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, was showed me that he's not leading us to a stage, he's leading us to a table. And I think that's why I love your heart so much, because specifically can be in ministry, can be in business, if we have this idea that when we reach some place of status or being known to a certain level that we're going to feel fulfilled, then we've missed it. Because the invitation is to a place of intimacy with the Father around a table. And if we can't take the time, calm our hearts, learn how to be focused enough on who he says we are, and relax in who he's called us to be as sons, we really can't grasp the fullness of what he's calling us to anyways. Yeah. And so I think, 2017, 2018, the Lord showed me I had massive pride in my life, and it came through tons of emotion and anger towards my spouse. You know, my wife was kind of climbing in what she was called to do while I was getting crushed in what I was called to do, and thinking I was going to be promoted, and the Lord just being like, I don't want you to be on a stage for a couple of years. I want you to get rooted in who you are in me, and understand the love of God for you and not for what it's, you know, giving someone else off of a platform. And so that was, about 2017, 2018. And just in that season, I think the Lord just refined in me an understanding of really what sonship really is, you know. But I think about being surrounded in fog, and I think about the feelings that I had, that swirled out feeling where you question your purpose in that season. You question, did God really say? Yeah. You question, is this what I'm called to do? And you know, you try to talk to friends, and they're telling you one thing, and ultimately you just need the Father's voice. Yeah. And I was thinking about us out fishing this morning, right? We're surrounded by fog.
Guys, you could not see off the end of the boat. Yeah. It was that foggy.
And we could have gotten afraid, and a little bit of us inside were like, okay, well, we know we can get back to where we need to go. We have navigation, but it kept getting worse, and the sun got completely clouded, right? Yeah. And so we could have in that moment swirled out, like called a bunch of people, tried to get the navigation out, and been a little stressed, but we just took a breath, said, Lord, you got this, right? And we just kept on moving forward. And I think that's really the posture the Lord's had to teach me, because I like to control things. I don't know about you, but it's so easy to control things. Yeah. And I think we've really built a culture of, whether it's through social media or what, that you have an ability to control your destiny, but honestly, we don't. And if we do, especially as men, if we think that we can control our life, we've missed it. Yeah. You know, it's when we just release control and say, Lord, you know, here I am, whatever you want. So,
I think so many times, you know, what men do in moments like that, when we're anchored in our identity is bring calm to a storm. You know, it brings a settledness into a chaotic situation, you know. I mean, there's plenty of moments, I have been in moments like that where people just start losing their freaking mind, you know. And we're going down, we're going to run over rocks, the engine's going out, we don't have any navigation. Not only that, the guide says this is the worst fog he's ever seen in his Alaskan history. He says that this morning.
And that was in response to, are we going to get back? And he says, this is the worst fog I've ever seen. I don't know.
And you're just like, okay, there's a moment here. There could be some total freak out. Or we believe that we know. We don't know where the destination is at, but we know we're going to keep moving forward. And we're just going to find the shore. Same thing. Find the river, find the road, find home. Find the shore, follow it, you'll find the boat. And golly, man, if we could just take life and make it that simple. Just make it that simple. Keep moving forward. Find your guardrail or whatever it is in your life, and the Word of God can be that. If you just stay in the Word, if you can just anchor yourself somewhere, and whether it's a brotherhood, sometimes it's a brotherhood, just stay anchored in with brothers, you'll weather the storm. You'll find the big ship, you'll get back home, you'll have a warm fire and a nice cup of coffee and some good warm oatmeal that we ate this morning, you know?
And a shot of whiskey.
And a shot of whiskey, baby, man. I'll have to double that one up here in a second, you know? But I think it's just beautiful that's the way God designs this thing. So, man, we've had a great conversation. I've loved it so far. You two guys have been major influencers in the world as we know it, in the kingdom, and in lots of different ways. I want to hear a little bit more about you guys and what you're presently doing. Duane, with Irons in the Fire, I want to hear, what's been going on with Irons in the Fire. You and I have been a part of that for the last 5 years for sure. What do you see happening with Irons in the Fire? What's been something that's been neat to see take place with what you're doing?
Sure. It was definitely a combination with Skylar, my son, and myself, and Jake. You've definitely been a part of that, and other men. But what we really have in our heart is multi-generational, not ministry, but multi-generational connection for men and identity, and so bringing men out to experience, not to. They can have experience anywhere, but bringing them out to experience, to actually experience the Lord in the experience, and to learn how to associate with other men, not only as brothers, but as recognizing sons and recognizing roles. I mean, obviously I'm the older one here, and not that age is a defining fact, but recognize I have a father's mantle. So giving men opportunity to see how that interfaces, how my own son and I interface, and learn from that, learn from the need of, I do need a father in my life. I need several fathers in my life. And the same from my standpoint. Hey, guys coming out that are my age or younger, and not embracing the responsibility to raise up sons after them. And one thing, the older you get, the more you recognize, that's what life's about. I'm going on here at some point, but what's going to remain is what influence I give in these other men's life and sons' life. And so calling men into that, and the recognition that, hey, you're a sage. Come on, step up. Don't be afraid. Don't be timid. These men need you. Be available. Don't. It's not that we have to go around and say, hey, I'm a father, come, but hey, I'm available. And I have some things I can share that'll help you along the journey, and just recognizing that, So those three relationships, I think, are what we're trying to build up and generate, not just for dads and sons, but dads and daughters, and the whole family thing. We have a dads and daughters trip, an annual trip that I think it's been one of the highlights of Irons in the Fire. That just a treasure to for me anyway. Seeing young fathers just take such attention to their daughters. I mean, you have boys, and hey, raise them up and play football, play basketball, all the things. But here I got a daughter that wants to play with dolls. How do I relate with that? But seeing that connection and spiritual connection that happens, out fishing happens, and even fathers that don't know how to fish, and getting them out there and interfacing with their daughter in a way that they're out there fishing, and we're just supporting them and give them a few pointers and stand back and let dad be the hero, which creates a unique relationship between that dad and daughter. And so that's what we're about.
And it's been awesome to watch that all come about. And now you guys have a lodge in Montana that sleeps a bunch of people on a river to go fishing and hiking and all kinds of wildlife. And, it's been something pretty cool to see God shape it and see how he's built it. So guys, if you want to take a dad's and daughter trip, father-son trip, Montana, I'm telling you, it's the place to go. It's one of my son's favorite places, and he asks me all the time if he can go. So Jordan, Wholehearted Men, you wrote a book. You're an author. Congratulations, you are an author. Big deal.
Rocket.
Shooting a video series that's coming out soon. If not, it'll probably be out by the time this podcast comes out. Tell us about Wholehearted Men and what are you doing?
So my wife and I have a ministry called Wholehearted Ministries, and we are basically missionaries, and we just do what God says, serve the church locally, globally, missionally. And but throughout the past 8 years, the Lord's really made it a specific call to men in my heart. And about 7 years ago, spoke about writing and getting language. And about 3 or 4 years ago, a friend of mine in the missions movement, Jerry King, as well, just started dreaming together and talking. He has a huge passion as well. I really want to see sons in the missions movement, but also the local church raised up, right? And who they're called to be, and out of insignificance and insecurity and bondage and all the things we're talking about, sons, brothers, fathers, raised up. But I live in Florida, and one little piece of Wholehearted Ministries has become Wholehearted Men. And we started gathering guys on a beach about a year ago and putting on a workout, sharing the gospel.
Yeah, they did. I just went there, got my butt kicked. It was great.
It was fun. And then you brought a great word, and a guy got saved. It was powerful. But we put the workouts on right in close to West Palm Beach, right where, right in that hub of place now that Trump's there and everything is going on. And so there's all kinds of men that come. And what we've done is, the hope is that the book that we've written, it can do what we've started to do, which is have our workouts monthly. We gather regionally with other men's workout communities. We're seeking to do regional gatherings, inviting men to a table. It's not about our ministry or our business or our thing. It's about us coming together under one name. And then hopefully that branching into then 8 to 12 week discipleship things. We just got done one a few weeks ago where we at the beginning, tested the guys physically. We did like a mile and a pull-up and a push-up, and and that at the beginning of the 12 weeks, and we go through the book together weekly, and at the end we test again, and just to see, because you got the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional. So just really excited. Want to definitely see the book get in the hands of men all across the world and change just hearts from the inside out. One other thing I would share would be, that where we get the term wholehearted is, if you look in Numbers chapter 14, I think, Moses had sent the spies into the promised land, and only 2 come back, with a different report. Joshua and Caleb, and the Lord said he set apart them, specifically Caleb, because of his different spirit and because he followed the Lord wholeheartedly. And so the book is really this journey of figuring out, what does it mean to live of a different spirit as a man in culture, and then how does that pan out in the span of manhood, sonship, brotherhood, and fatherhood, and finding fathers like yourself, right? Couldn't do it without you, and brothers, and then finding sons, and seeing that reciprocated through the nations is just the heart of it. So,
Man. I've already read the whole thing, got to be one of the first ones to get to kind of thumb through it. So it was a joy. I was texting a bunch of people about it. Hey, y'all can't wait to dive into this thing. It's got these great, I would call it a field manual, because it gives you a lot of practical application to moving forward on all these things. And then, jumping into irons in the fire, that's practical ways to actually go live it out too. And so that's why I love that both of you are on the podcast at the same time, because it connects our head with our heart and our heart to our hands. And, I'm all about that. If we live in our head, we're puffed up, arrogant, no good to nobody. If we live in our heart and don't think, we're emotional beings that just can't stop. And if we just keep going with no purpose and no drive and no emotion, we're worthless too. So connect our hearts, heads, and hands together, and we can change the world. I truly believe that. And Table Men exists to set the table, to gather men, movements, leaders, anybody and everybody, to just say we can do this together. Jesus did it together with a bunch of men. We can do it together with a bunch of men. So, one of these things that we're really going for in this podcast is God's given me a very clear call to call forth 24,000 men to fill a stadium at some point. When that'll be, I don't know. But this is the beginning of the storyline. This is the beginning of us telling it and gathering people together, continuing to say, what if an army full of God, wholehearted, driven men laid hold of this country? What could really happen? I think the narrative of America will change. I think the narrative of our homes will change. I think suicide rates will plummet and go away. I think that divorce will turn around and go away. I think that present daddies that raise healthy kids, that raise great families, will go on the rise. And we will see a healthy generation of men in our country. So that's what I want to continue to talk about. Now, it's why I want the guests that we're going to have on this show is just, let's have the conversation. Let's begin the dialogue of how to get there and how to stay at the table, but also how to get to the table. So I would tell you today, if you've watched this podcast, you're inspired by these guys. Number one, go look up Irons in the Fire. Go look up Wholehearted Man Ministries, Wholehearted Ministries. Check us out, tablemen.com. You can find out more about what we're doing, but gather with a bunch of dudes around a table, share stories, and watch God move. I can tell you, I have seen this happen for 20 plus years. It is always, always fruitful. Jesus will meet you at the table. You are welcome at the table. You're always welcome to the table, and He's dining with us. So Jesus is going to set a table and come back one day with a horse and a big old meal. So if He's going to do that, I think we need to be ready to know how to go sit at that thing. So guys, thank you so much for coming and joining me on the podcast on a boat in Alaska. God doesn't get any better than this.
Still foggy.
It's still foggy and it's great. But that's the whole reason we wanted to shoot this out in creation. Guys, I hope you enjoyed getting to watch this episode. We will see you next time at the table. Thanks so much for joining. Hey guys, I just got back here to Texas and we just got off the Alaskan Legend shooting a podcast that you are not going to want to miss. These are real, raw, authentic stories, but shot in the middle of creation with waterfalls, glaciers. It's incredible. A journey of a lifetime with friends talking about Jesus and Him encountering us at the table. Go to tablemen.com. You can watch it right there, YouTube, or listen on any podcast platform you want to listen to. Table Men Podcast. It is where it's going to be.